want to welcome you to art show Jonas Fricka here at the Brattleboro Museum and Art Center. This show is going to be up until the 17th, and I hope some of you can see it in person. I'm Sylvia Blanchet, Jonas's mother, and I invited several of Jonas's colleagues and collaborators and teachers to come today and share their experience of working or being with Jonas, collaborating. Jonas has been a member of this community his whole life. He died in March of this year. And since he's died, I've had the opportunity to talk with numbers of his friends and colleagues about what they experienced in making art and being with Jonas. And this is true for my husband and my daughter also, and it really was such a blessing to us that just a couple days ago I thought it would be a gift to be able to share this with a larger community. So if I was to invite all the people that Jonas has collaborated with or learned from, this whole museum would be packed. So there's a small representation here, and one of the play groups that I'm very aware is really missing are everybody under 10. Because Jonas did a lot of art making and collaboration with little people, and I wish I'd been able to arrange that here as well. But this was very last minute, so I want people to be aware that it was hard to arrange everyone's schedule. And for instance, Nettie Lou Lane will have to leave early to teach, and Ali will be coming later, but you will have the opportunity to hear from everyone. So what I would like, I have two goals for this gathering today. One is that people can become more acquainted with his community's experience of working with him and his perspective on art. But I also would love the Brattleboro community to know the artists that are here in this room, these talented and passionate artists, and I would like to invite each person to introduce themselves, say something about their own artistic endeavors and philosophy, and then we thought perhaps a good way to talk about our experience with Jonas was if each person could pick one or more pieces that are in this room of Jonas's art and speak from them as a reference to what their experience was of Jonas as an artist. So Nettie Lane, do you want to begin?
So my name is Nettie Lane. I teach clowning here in Brattleboro and beyond. And it's a somatic form of clowning. Clown comes from your body, and Jonas took my clown class and created an amazing clown called The Professor. It's interesting to be in this room. It's such a small space for such a big soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels kind of concentrated to me right now. When I look around this room and feel this room, there's so many messages from Jonas here, And I feel like my experience of Jonas, I feel like it's even from now beyond, it's like this kind of like, hey, little wink, you know, remember these things. Like I'm looking across at I believe in me. I'm looking at this world is a gift. I'm looking at hold on, let go. I'm looking at there's holy curiosities. There's just so much here. Yeah, I just feel like I'm being infused with how Jonas held the world and how Jonas walked in the world. And my words are sort of failing me, but how magic was such a big, there's magic written here on the walls too, but to hold on to this beauty and the mystery and the magic and the love. I feel like Jonas walked the world like that, in service to and despite all the things that were happening in the world that could so easily tear us down and apart. And I know for me sometimes it makes me want to sort of be a recluse and hide away. But there is this big yes that Jonas has and is. And I knew Jonas from being his clown teacher, and it was very, very sweet. Whenever he would introduce me to someone, he would say, "This is my clown maestra," and he would always introduce me that way. And it was just so, I don't know, it was very heartening. And the other connection, there's Jonas giving a little ring. The other connection is,
Can I give this to you?
Is Jonas and I share the same birthday. And so we've always, he always felt sort of like a spiritual soul brother. And then Jonas also lived down the road from where I live. And so we had, actually during the pandemic, we had some very beautiful conversations where he would be driving by, be walking. Sometimes he wouldn't even pull over to the side of the road. The car would just stay there and we'd start talking about things. And he always had, his car was full to the brim of creations. And on a couple occasions, he would say, "Wait, Nettie, I have something for you." And he'd just rummage around in there and be like, and then he'd pull something out and be like, "Here, I want you to have this." And that happened a couple times, and there are things that I treasure. Yeah, and Jonas as a performer, I know he told me doing the clowning was one of the most difficult things that he had done. And I will never forget, and Jenna was there, so he did a few different pieces, but he did this one piece with Mother Earth. This was the prompt was to bring in a prop, and he brought in this cloth earth, and as he was going over it, there was a rip in the fabric, and that led to this whole piece about Mother Earth. And he started the piece with, you know, as his clown, the professor was so just like loving the earth, like how much he loved, how beautiful it was, and then he finds this rip in the fabric, and it was just like, you know, a little siren went off, and it was so touching and so profound. and so hits so straight to the heart of like what, just how our actions affect this beautiful place we live. And I remember him going off stage, and for a moment there just being complete silence, because I feel like everyone was just like stunned. I mean, some people were crying, and then there was of course the applause, but it was this way of being through love and through ridiculousness, but also carrying kind of, it's like carrying the weight of the world and also the lightness and beauty of the world at once. So I think probably said enough, but I miss Jonas. I really do. And I mean, one gift is that he's left us. I got to know his mom and develop a relationship, and get to be close to people that I might not otherwise have been close to. So I feel like Jonas is still working his magic. And yeah, Jonas, the other thing I want to say is I feel like Jonas is asking me and all of us to be brave in our authenticity. He posed the question with his performance name, if not I, then who then? And I feel like he just is passing that torch to us. Not I, then you, then. So that's what it was.
Thank you, Nettie. I just wanted to say a few words about this show. In some ways, it's similar to Jonas's way of collaborating. He collaborated with so many, and as I've said, this museum would be full, but he was also a very prolific artist. And so this room is a very small representation of his work. You'll find things from his performing, signs of him being a musician as well as a painter and a clown, etc. But I wanted to just speak about the process of putting it up. We have here people from the Buoyant Heart, which is the artist collective that Jonas was a part of. And Jenna Etra and Jocelyn McElroy brought things from their collection of Jonas's art, and I brought some of my favorite things, and together we collaborated. And while it may not be exactly the way Jonas would have put it up, it represents collaboration, which is, I think, central to how Jonas did things. And so it's a mixture of styles here. So that's a few thoughts that I had. And I'd like to one, thank Nettie Lou Lane for her words. And I'd next like to introduce Sarah Bowen. And Sarah, I hope you'll say something about yourself as an artist and the role you played with Jonas.
So I'm Sarah Bowen. I'm an artist, an art educator, a mother, and a grandmother. And I had the great pleasure of working with Jonas for a full year when he was an art student at Vermont College. So this would be maybe 15 or a little more years ago. And we stayed in touch. I live in Brattleboro now, and from time to time we would check in with each other. So first I want to talk about the actual studies that Jonas undertook, because I think they were so significant. He seemed to come to the college. I think he'd been for several semesters at Marlborough College, and he came to Vermont College with a really quite clear idea of what he needed to know in order to live his life fully as an artist and as a person with moral convictions and a good view of the world as it is. And so for the first semester, he wanted to study artists who were different, who did not necessarily follow the contemporary art world that they lived in, that found individual paths for having their work be seen and experienced. He was interested in artists who worked in a variety of mediums. He was interested in how protest is expressed. He studied the Dada artists in pre-First World War Germany, and he needed to study this, not just because he wanted a degree, because it turned out he didn't really want a degree. He left Vermont College, I think, with only one semester remaining to have a degree. What was so joyous for me about working with Jonas was putting the study together. We did this together. There was a very serious reading list, reading and looking list, and he produced artwork. So it was a study that combined art history and studio work. And the second study focused on symbolism. And if you look around this room, you can see that that's a very, very large part of Jonas's visual language. And part of the symbolism that he studied was very ancient. We spent part of the semester looking at shamanic art in various cultures. We also moved up to the more contemporary painters. And I think that was what he needed to know, and I'm not sure he needed to learn anything more from an institution. But what I saw of Jonas was that he was not just studying how to be an artist and how to be a unique artist, but he was looking for a way also to be a person in the world that we live in. And one might say that's challenging. And those traits were visible in him back then very much. He did some performances also at the residencies. So when I look around at this show now, I just feel like, well, first of all, I feel like the show has been really well designed. And you can walk right into it, and there's large and small, and there's warm colors and cool colors, and it very much, all of it expresses a very interesting mind and soul. And I feel also that chaos is a very big theme. And yet, if you look at the chaos that's depicted, it's a very sweet form of chaos. that I think was very special to Jonas. That's the way it is, so we're going to look at the sweetness of it. And it's a beautiful combination of sweetness and darkness and light and symbolism. Just in closing, I would say that because I'm an artist who also is not conventional in many ways, we resonated. I feel that we became friends, and I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for being able to work with Jonas for 2 semesters. I learned a tremendous amount that I also needed to know during that time. I loved his generosity. I loved how productive he was. I loved, as I said, what he did with chaos. And I know that he wondered, that Jonas wondered, how he would survive if he didn't sell his work in a traditional way. And he had many anxieties about the path that we can see here that he took. And I praise him for it, and I'm very grateful to the museum and to Sylvia and to all of his friends who helped put the show up.
Thank you, Sarah. I don't know if you want to say more, but I hope at the end we'll have time to talk in reference to each other. Maybe we'll have questions of each other, so that I hope there'll be some time to interact too.
You want me to go next?
Sure.
Well, my name's Kay Curtis, and I've lived in Brattleboro for 23 years. And before that, I had been like Jonas, a self-proclaimed artist. I'm going to make a living from my art. I'm not going to do anything else. And I had done that since I left college before completing at 17. So we had some similarities in our path. And then I came to Brattleboro, and by then I had 3 kids, so I got a little disillusioned and went into childcare for 17 years. When I was in childcare, I was walking along Main Street in Brattleboro one day, and I saw this young man sitting on the sidewalk with an array of paper images in front of him. And childcare providers don't make very much money, neither do artists, but I said, how much are those pieces of paper? And he said, $5, or anything you can give me. And I was like, oh my God, I just landed the big prize. So I picked up a couple of his pieces and I took them home and I put them in my house. And then I kept bumping into him over the next 17 years while I was a childcare provider. And then when I retired, I got the idea of opening a gallery for people like me who made art but aren't normally shown in museums or in high-end galleries. And the first person I went out to find was Jonas. And I said, Jonas, I want you in this gallery. And he said, well, I have to fix up this school bus so I can live in it. He was at a puppet show. He was being a clown at a puppet show. And he says, but once that's fixed up, I'll come find you. And I thought, I'll never hear from him again. It's over. Sure enough, he came and found me the moment that got done. And he said, I'm ready now. And we brought him in, and he wanted to put his art up in his own particular way. And I was trying to manage 30 other artists who had their own opinions about how art should be put up. And it did not coincide with Jonas's way. And I said, I'm sorry, it's too bad. Jonas is going to do it the way Jonas does it, and you can do it the way you do it. And that was fine. But then there was a moment right after we started when COVID happened, literally 6 months after we had opened, and I had thrown everything into the gallery, and Jonas was there. And I came in one day because half the people wanted to close immediately and be safe, and half of the people wanted to stay open and not risk losing our gallery. And I was going to be the tie-breaking vote because I was the coordinator. And I said, Jonas, what do I do? And he looked at me and he said, you know, if people are afraid, you should protect them and close. And I was like, wow. It was just so clear. Like, I really care about the people. Why wouldn't I close if they're that afraid? And so we closed the next day based on Jonas's diagnosis of how I should handle this tricky situation. And we've never regretted it. It was the perfect thing to do, and then we opened up later, and the gallery's been fine ever since. And that was just this moment when so I started calling him the harmony philosopher. And if I ever got to an impasse with how to make a decision for the group, I would go to Jonas. So there was another time when certain people didn't like the work of other people. And they said, well, we should see if we can get this person out of the gallery, because clearly that person's work is not as good as it should be to be in this gallery. And I said, Jonas, people are doing this. They're trying to get me to get people out of the gallery. He says, nobody should ever tell anybody how to make their art, ever. And I've also used that philosophy going forward in managing 30 artists with different styles and different ways of making art, different ways of displaying their art and all that. So he handed me a certain sort of way to be with people that I thought, being twice his age, I would have already figured out, but no, I needed to bump into Jonas and get taught by Jonas. And it's all in his work. All of the things that he believes in are said in his work. There are a lot of words inside of his work. And I have been collecting ever since. Once I literally said, Jonas needs the money, I need that piece of art, I'm gonna buy this piece off the wall. And I took the piece off the wall and stretched my budget, and I bought this piece of art. And I said, Jonas, did you notice I bought your art? Because I thought he'd be so thrilled. And he said, oh, I didn't know I put a price on that one. I was going to keep that one. I don't think he was ever interested in selling his artwork. But then he said to me, he says, but if it's going to live somewhere, I'm glad it's going to live in your house. And it's in my house, and I get to look at it every single day. And I feel very sorry for all those people who were so stingy and didn't buy his work when it was available. But meanwhile, it exists in new places now. So here's the other thing I want to say about Jonas, is if you read his work, like, this is a young man who only lived to 42 years old. Everything in his art says, this is the most I can give inside the parameters of that life. So I feel like he didn't waste a single second of his life. Every single minute, he would come into the gallery to run the store and be sitting on the floor with a pile of fabric, and he'd be embroidering or painting or doing something the whole time he was there working the gallery. I mean, he was active and artistic and doing things for people and traveling to different places to be in parades for every single second of his life. He did not waste a minute. And so the fact that he had 42 years, to me, he did so much in those 42 years. I think that's a thing to celebrate. So when I see his stuff, I'm sad he's not here anymore, but I am also really grateful that he had the most beautiful life, and he chose it, and he went for it, and he did it. And I think he's at peace somewhere. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you, Kay.
You're welcome.
I can't help wondering if you don't want to say something about the gallery, that where it is, its name, or...
So Jonas was at Harmony Collective for about 3 of our 5 years that we've been around. And Harmony Collective is a gallery of artists who love making art but have no access to places to show their art in Brattleboro. It's on Elliott Street. It's open every day from 10 to 5. And we have a little memorial for him in the corner of our gallery. We were never able to completely remove all of his work. So that's there. So come and visit us anytime you're in Brattleboro.
Thank you, Kay.
There you go.
Thank you. As you can see, we are doing some musical comings and goings, and I wanted to welcome Saturn Lady Hart, who's collaborated with Jonas for decades, and give whoever would like to speak a chance to go. It seems a lot to ask of you. You just came. I don't know if you want
I
to
can
just...
give it a shot. I'm not going to remember that much, so if you have questions or anybody has a prompt for me, that'll probably help in the telling. But Jonas and I, he's my oldest and most consistent artistic collaborator. We started making art together when we were 20, and pretty much did it the whole time, like to the point where we had sort of, more than anybody I know, created an aesthetic and an ethics of making things together. It was like we've been stealing stuff from each other for so long, I can't even tell like what's my idea or what's his idea. It's just like being passed freely back and forth, and in a really fluid way. And just a very, very committed, artistically committed person. Jonas was definitely was in it for life, for beyond life. His work will come through all of us, obviously, through the unknown future. And we shared studio spaces and performance space in many, many different places, in Brattleboro mostly, but lots of different buildings and projects, and lots of other collaborators as well, and always like a really committed person to building community through art in Brattleboro, accessible community to art in Brattleboro. And just really, 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 really important, especially in this place where it's not that accessible for a lot of people. And I don't know, anybody got any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
Saturn, I'm aware of how Jonas would talk about artivism and how important it was to him. And I know that you shared that with him, and I'm more familiar with the project that the Wyndham Arts Foundation funded for you and Jonas to work with the Susu community.
Yeah, that mural you're talking about, yeah, which is that mural. Jonas and I were passing this big mural, pieces of painting, it's on fabric back and forth, and as before he passed, it got passed back to me. So we still have, even post his death, we still have a collaborative piece that's in the works that will be coming at some point in the future. But I don't know, like artivism, I never heard Jonas ever use the words artivism, but I think I know what you're talking about. I think there was a commitment to using art to connect people to to each other into a larger world of context of the people and places and the things that are going on, and making it pretty participatory in the world. It's not a standby or get out of the way. It's like being involved in what's actually happening around you and in the world. So that was definitely, it was deeply committed to that as an idea, for sure, and a working concept, as you can see from all this stuff in his artistic, in his visual work, and in his performance work, both. There's a lifer in that way.
May I ask another question?
Yeah, please.
In that wonderful parade that you all created for Jonas in April, there was a moment when people were being guided through the tunnel, and there was an opportunity for the void to speak. And my understanding is somehow this part of the performance art of the void and the void speaking was something that you two sort of created together. And I wondered if, since we all experienced going through the void in the parade,
Yeah.
maybe you can say a few words about that.
Yeah, the Void Beast was like a joke and a concept that we've been like playing with for years, and Jonas would do performances as the Void Beast. The Void Beast is just like the unknown void that we all have come from and are eventually returning to, and he would play the Void Beast and translate from the void, telling us things from beyond. And when I thought about doing some like a interactive performative element for that parade, I just landed on that. And he had done so many things. He would pull it out for like my birthday. He would be the Void Beast and do like a campfire show, or we did like shows at McNeil's where he would be the Void Beast, and I just landed on that as like the thing that felt most like I was imagining him still speaking to us from the void. It seemed like prophetic and like the right thing for that. Yeah, and I keep coming back to it too. It doesn't feel played out at all. It's like it's still ongoing. The Void Beast loves us and will eventually eat us all.
Celestial family band.
Celestial family bands. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
A prompt. I feel like, for me, when you say the word collaboration, it feels almost like it doesn't really do justice. Because in contemporary realm, collaboration is like one established artist and another, or like two individuals, and they like collaborate on a project. And just the depth of intertwining of creativity that you and Jonas had.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you could talk a little more about that, because something has stuck with me and it really still resonates regularly. And when you spoke in another circle, we were sitting together, you spoke about co-creating culture.
Yeah.
And maybe you could just really like riff on that a little bit more, because it.
Jonas in my life and lots of other people in Jonas's life were so entwined in all the ways of like living together and working together and creating together and aesthetically we had created a culture of what we actually wanted the world to be like together, and we have. It lives, it continues to live. And that really felt like the most important thing. It wasn't just particular art or performance, but it was actually like a way of being that honestly reflected how we wanted the world to look like. it lives on. It's hard. It's like I thought that, and we did. I thought that Jonas and I would be like working together and living together forever for our entire lives. In a way we did. But it's like interesting to think now as we move on how we take the culture that we've created and he's created with not just me but everyone around him and hold that well and move forward with that. Thank you.
And I guess I have one other question, a prompt question. I wonder if there's so much of an cult of individuality in the art world. It's this whole idea that to be successful as an artist, you really have to make a certain pivot towards individualism, to sell yourself as an individual artist and to stake out a brand and all this shit that Jonas just refused in so many ways. I think because I feel like he knew that at some level that couldn't help. That was a choice that he made, which was always community and culture and connectivity. And again, collaboration isn't really the right word. It's like co-created culture over his own individual success or his own individual anything. And maybe you could just talk more about like what that was like for you as someone who watched Jonas reach different levels of like individual notoriety at different times, but like how he prioritized the community over all it. Like it was just, you saw that over a long game.
Yeah. Well, he was like the most firm believer in the sort of like let's be famous to each other kind of ethic that we are creating. We're not like. I mean, it's great to get out to the world, but we are our direct community is the people that we are actually looking to, that we are like holding up, that we have the most interest and effect upon. And he was, he just supported everybody. He really was like to all of his friends and performers. He like was like, you are famous, basically, to me and to us. And he loved getting that back too, and he did, and it's an interesting way that plays out. But you can see it in the way that he affected everybody around in this art community. Just a very firm believer in holding each other up. All the way.
In his writing, I'm just reminded of something he wrote, that in giving is the receiving.
Thanks for sharing all of that.
I'm curious about hearing somebody talk more about like the projects, the community projects.
Like the collective.
Collective, or just creating spaces and performances and things like this.
Yeah. My name is Jenna Etra. I've been a long friend and partner and collaborator in Jonas's life since like 2016 was when we first started becoming friends and close to one another. And yeah, I feel like Jonas is like really the first person I ever met that like I didn't actually feel like I needed permission. Like there was so much support, so much deep generousness in the like we hold each other up energy, and like was the first time I'd ever really kind of felt like the veil like leave, like a part of my experience in the world up until that point, having been an artist since I was a child also, and always making things and being curious and questioning the world. I feel like if I'm going to reference a piece, that like we must ask ourselves these questions, sift through our answers, question our words, breathe through the hard parts, like that. These lyrics from a song that Jonas performed. Like, there was a moment when we had early days, we were hanging out and we were taking Nettie's clown class, and I remember I saw Jonas perform one time and I was like, oh my gosh, like you were the person I saw at Future Fest 2 or 3 years ago, and I didn't know that was you, and I remember watching you on stage being like, what am I witnessing? Like, it was like, really blew my mind, but I almost like didn't know how to process it, and I was like intrigued, but also kind of terrified, but also kind of just like, this is like something like I've never experienced before. And I feel like through my connection with Jonas was able to like just actually relax and like sink into and feel connected to a really supportive community of artists and people that I would say are all artists, even if they don't call themselves artists, you know, that like are deeply involved in like community care and like tending spaces that only exist with the like, I don't know, real like sweat and giving up, making decisions and choices that like kind of veer you off the path of some kind of societal ease that maybe is relatively available to different people more than others, but like really creating space that isn't just foundational on like privilege and access to money, or I don't know, just being like really dedicated to the beliefs and values and ethics of creating a different world. And my life has forever changed having been welcomed and like seen and like appreciated by somebody who I actually deeply resonated with and was like, wow, I'm like so glad to have finally met like my family, like my people that are like gonna hold me, you know? And like that energy was like just so powerful for like being able to like dedicate like the energy and care and love that I had for like so many people throughout my life, trying to encourage people to make art, not be so hard on themselves, like really like love like what each other bring into the world, and like especially if you're making it from a place that's like really rooted in like a just like being willing to sit with what comes through yourself and like what you're processing through the world and what you're seeing, and like not turning away from things and not feeling like you have to just like grind along to get to the next marker of success or whatever. And I just I feel like that permission and like that dedication was so shared and led to like really wanting to start a space that like could house that kind of energy and care. And we were in Pittsburgh, had just like hung out with Saturn, hung out with Dahlia, like seen this like bunch of different beautiful spaces all around the country that were kind of like fading away. A lot of those spaces don't actually exist anymore, which is like deeply sad to me to think about how like the collective space that we still share right now, that's started in the spring of 2019, after like a long lineage of like many collectives in Brattleboro that I can really only speak to mostly from stories I've heard from Jonas, like lovingly recounting and archiving and telling the tale of like collective history in this place. But the places that I have seen like deeply inspired me, and then Jonas is like just so freshly willing to like always step into a new project. Like I feel like starting the art collective in Brattleboro with a number of other people who had actually done most of the legwork and just called Jonas and I on the way back from Pittsburgh, and they were like, hey, you guys want to get involved in this project? And we were like, yeah, sure, like, could be cool, like, I don't know. We were literally just thinking about looking for a space ourselves to like rent and like have our own studios and like have a big open space for like shows and potlucks and sharing, and we were like gonna do that. We just had this like deep visioning with Dahlia, and we were like, we're gonna do it. And we we want a bus, and we want and like got the bus like also that same week. It was like really kind of a bizarre turn of events. But they also said we wanted to join, and we were like super down. And I feel like I don't know, just having having projects that are really based on like consensus, but also based on like our lives being really present in the work that we're doing, that like what we're building together isn't just like a day job, it isn't just like a space that we go to when it's like this is where that lives. It's like actually our lives are like shared and connected, and we're feeding each other, we're like giving each other rides places, we're like making sure someone has enough to pay their bills that month, we're making sure that, you know, like
Yeah.
you have the supplies you need to do the beautiful work you want to make in the world. And like
Yeah.
it feels very different than imagining it as like other artist spaces I've seen sometimes that feel more centered around like, I don't know, some other, I don't know the other versions. I've never really been a part of those sort of art spaces, but
It sounds very holistic.
yeah,
Aspect.
it's like, it's kind of like you're sort of all in. It's like being a lifer in the sense of like you really deeply, your heart is like fully committed to the work that it takes to like have a creative, beautiful existence that's like tied to the beautiful, creative, liberatory existence of like people all over the planet. It's like not just here. It's like definitely gets back into like activism and like mutual aid, and like none of that stuff is separate. You know, like to talk about Jonas and his art, you have to also think about like every other space that he was a part of. Maybe he wasn't there the whole time, or there to start it, or there to help clean up when it got evicted, or he wasn't always there for every piece of the puzzle, but like setting up his art show in July, like I got to work with a lot of the posters for flyers for like events that he had been a part of planning or been on tour and made the show flyer for it when he came through town, you know. And it's just on every single one of those flyers, it's a space that's in someone's backyard. It's a DIY space that was like maybe lasted 2 years, maybe lasted 7, maybe lasted 2 months. You know, it's like all these like really beautiful like archived experiences of like people caring for each other, and I feel like that comes through so much in his work too. It's just like, I don't know, like even so many of these drawings, like sometimes they were in a sketchbook because they were on paper, but they would get like photocopied and then added banners and then made smaller and then like printed so that they could like hold all of the other beautiful ideas around them too. Or, you know, I feel like I've been noticing like the way that they would translate would sometimes like come through in such different ways.
Or on a t-shirt.
Or on a shirt. Yeah, it's beautiful. Oh my god, I'm forgetting right now what
You
he
know,
called that bag.
Jenna, when you say that, what I'm reminded of is, you know, some of these pieces are earlier ones and they're sort of
Yeah.
discrete unto themselves, but I began to notice how his paintings became much more oriented to be sort of platforms of ways to bring people together.
Mhm.
Like there became more and more banners, you know, to be able to announce things. So his art began to seem to me more and more in service of the community, in a way. You didn't find sort of as many sort of discrete, well, I'm not sure if that's true, but I certainly saw what you were talking about how his art served for ways of making it so people could come together.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to welcome Ali DeColi, another member of the Buoyant Heart. And my understanding is that Danny McNamara may be ready to share with us. Is that true?
Sure.
Yeah.
My name is Danny McNamara, and I met Jonas in 2004 as we both were the first, it was each of our first summer at Bread and Puppet Theater as apprentices, and pretty immediately we began playing music together and pretty much spent the whole summer banging on a drum or playing horns or pretty much grabbing every free minute of every day that we could. just spontaneously making music. And it was a very formative moment of my life. My whole artistic and political world was being blown open through exposure to both people at Brenham Public Theater and that community. And our paths were deeply entwined that summer, and then Jonas took off in his direction and was already continued the amazing artistic work that he was doing. And I went deep at Bread and Puppet for 5 years and then lived there and went on my own journey through that work. And I re-encountered Jonas back when I moved into this part of the world, into southern Vermont, and reconnected with him through the community here, and was just very immediately blown away, stunned, inspired, attracted by the really special culture that Jonas was a part of cultivating. I remember the first show that I went to at the Buoyant Heart. It was a Trani Brothers show. It was a potluck. There was a lot of people there, and it was just a kind of space and a kind of co-creative cultural dynamic that I really was craving in my life. And I came to only know through time as I became a member of the Buoyant Heart, and as I moved into a studio there and began to be more involved in the work of that space, how much Jonas's energy, Jonas's life work, Jonas's spirit, Jonas's day-to-day creative practice was such a key part of what is a really special culture in this part of the world. A special radical culture, an inclusive culture, a tolerant culture. He really accepted people as they were. And the thing that you said about no one should ever tell anyone how to make their art, I feel like was really a key thing about Jonas's just life philosophy, and I think it extended into how Jonas accepted people. He really accepted humans. I think if I wanted to riff on a piece, I want to reference this piece here, because I think Jonas's words are the best way to get any closer to what he cared about and how he moved through the world. Everyone has a heart, wakes under the same sun. Everyone has wants and needs and worries and plights, is made of spirit energy, light, fight, flight, bacteria, and boundless mystery, holy chemistry, and unholy recipes. Everyone clothed in these body realities. Everyone once first formed words from raw sound. Everyone learned their world from lips and eyes, and your travels around a burning sphere in space. Everyone is struggling to comprehend the reasons behind and above and within everything. Everyone knows all, and everything is made of constant changing. And on. I could read that whole thing right now, but I feel like Jonas played with words, and that was, he knew language was a way of communicating. He used it to communicate and put it into all of his art, but he also, I think, a thing that I resonated a lot with is he had a real suspicion of using language as a tool of control, as a tool of manipulation, as a tool of promoting a specific agenda, or as a tool of self-promotion, really. I think that was, people would maybe say, well, that was a part of his struggle being a successful artist, but he was the most successful artist I could ever dream to have been connected with. He did things with his art and creativity that I think are the bar. That's the values I feel every artist would do justice to themselves and the world to aspire towards. And it really is a paradigm shift. It really is from what's taught in art schools often, what is generally promoted as a way to be a successful artist or as a way to make it in the world. Jonas knew about all of that, and he understood it, and he appreciated artists who played that game, and he respected artists who tried to make their living primarily through promotion of their individual agenda is a strong word, individual aesthetic or their individual ideas. And he did that, but he in a really radical, transformative, visionary way, he prioritized his friends. And not just his friends, but all the friends that everyone in his connected world, the people he communicated with, connected with, and that web spanned the entire country and world in ways that are still baffling to me and inspiring, because it's very hard, I think, to even grasp how many lives Jonas touched, and that is like, by just being a model of a human, and that's something I'm so grateful to have been even close to, and inspires me every day, because it is a radical shift in what's important from a lot of what is promoted, celebrated, taught in our society, or how we're told to pursue success. And he said, no, we want a different world. We want a better world, and we're going to create it. He says that. It's like this. If not I, then who then? He put it into his titles. It's like, if I don't do this, if I don't cultivate community, create culture, create spaces where everyone is welcome and safe, create radical culture, then who will? So I mean, I don't know how to praise him enough in this context. I think another thing I need to bring in that hasn't really necessarily been mentioned, because Jonas didn't sell himself as when you said the word artivism, these buzzwords Jonas was not on. It wasn't on. He never was like, I'm a social practice artist who's promoting diversity and inclusion and radicality and revolutionary politics. And, he was anti-capitalist. He was an anti-capitalist to the core. And he never necessarily wouldn't, I'm an anti-capitalist, but he was an anti-capitalist, which is a radical position to hold in today's society. So I'm not only organizing my life around this idea, I'm organizing my work, I'm organizing my relationships, and I'm promoting an alternative to this paradigm of how we're supposed to relate to each other, primarily dominated by money and primarily dominated by a material fear that if I don't follow these rules, my life is going to suck, and I'm not going to be able to get the things I want. And Jonas said, no, I'm going to take care of my friends, I'm going to celebrate my friends, I'm going to give away my art.
I'm going to spend my last $5.
Spend my last $5 buying this piece of art for my friend who needs that $5 to go buy themselves some dinner. I mean, he was like, he was, I don't know what to say. He was, like, I feel like words that historically, like, it isn't inaccurate to call Jonas a prophet. I feel like I will call my friend Jonas a prophet, because that word has so many problematic things to it and whatever, but like, if he went into realms of possibility in his own being and living and really brought that to all of us and just put it out there constantly, like if there are those humans in this world who just really do shift things in a major way, Jonas was one of them. He was a person who did that without ever aggrandizing. He just didn't have that in him. And I think that it's I do want to say that, like, for those of you that come and see this, I say this with utmost respect and also honoring. I think when you said, Sylvie, was a polite way to put it, this isn't exactly how Jonas would have organized his own art.
That's what I said.
And let's be honest, Jonas would have never put his art up like this. And that's okay. He would have filled every blank space, and he would have invited Saturn, he would have invited all, and John, and Ellie, and all of us, and everyone from the Boy Heart to come and fill every corner of this room. If he had a space where he was allowed to influence, he did not leave anything untouched. And it wasn't from selfish need to control or act. It was just like, no, there's abundance of creative energy that is not flowing enough, but to fill every inch. And he would do that. And I loved that about it. And you know, it's interesting to be in this room where that's not what's happening, and that's also okay, because I think there's really distilled ideas. Like this is like a distillation of some core ideas of what Jonas believed in, and there's a way that that's receivable from a person coming in here that maybe isn't so easy when you're like, whoa, I'm in another realm. Do I have to leave? I don't want to leave.
Like every moment of the show.
I mean, or the show at Brennan Putt, I remember that.
Yeah.
Our Woodshed Gallery never, ever looked like that.
Yeah.
Never, nor will ever again.
Yeah.
That installation was like amazing. It was amazing.
You're referencing when they let him do a whole exhibit in the front of the barn at the Bread and Puppet?
It was a show that Jonas and I did. It was in the woodshed in the back by the kitchen.
Did they YouTube it so I can see it?
I have no idea.
There's probably,
Oh,
there's some
footage.
photos up there. There's a few different
It was
sources.
like a string portal.
A string portal.
Yeah,
It was a
strings.
full.
You like framed wood to be able to hang stuff.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was.
wild.
And I lived at Brooklyn. Go ahead. Yeah.
That was last summer, not this one, but before. The one before.
So last summer there was a show there that you did together.
Yeah, that was the last show.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of his performance for the
Yeah.
opening.
I want her to be able to hear you, Allie.
Okay. I'll be loud. So I prepared a little just written thing to help guide me through my feelings. Okay, so I'm gonna try and like look at it.
So this is
And
Allie.
this. Hi, I'm Allie. I run this business called Finale Ferments. I'm a farmer and I make all sorts of funky veggies and feed them to my community because that's my passion. But talk about me all day. I'm here to talk about Jonas because he influenced me in so many ways, and it's kind of hard to just say it all in one moment or in one breath. But my gratitude is overflowing for having known him, and his voice is a harmonious vibration in the soil of my spirit. And what that means is I hear him. He's a guide. He's a brother. He's somebody I listen to in my work and still to this day. He's inspiring me all the time, every day since the day I met him. And his ability to relate and connect with so many people, just like you're saying, like it was just fluidity, and he created an environment that felt inclusive, like you were his family. And that means a lot to me for so many reasons. But on a deep heart level, he really wanted to connect to people, and that was really paramount for me in that time of my life when I met Jonas around like, I guess 2017, 18. So yeah, we would kind of let time pass connecting in ways that you would feel special to be around that human being, and we're here celebrating him for a million reasons, but he feels like chosen family, and that is important. And also he is chosen family to the community of Brattleboro. He's like the magic mayor of this town, that like a hero and a guide for lots of people in this community. So I just wanted to say that. But also he invited me into the Buoyant Heart, the winner of the 2019, which was also the same winter that our mutual friend JQ passed. And that was a big creative turning point for me, because I'd kind of let my creative self kind of fall to the wayside. I was sort of focused on managing a huge farm operation and then building my own house. And I wasn't kind of giving myself the agency and the time I needed to express my inner voice. And the fact that he was like, come into this awesome, beautiful, creative space, join us. You're here, this is you need this. And that felt really warm, and the friendliest gesture that I needed for my growth. And like becoming a part of a real artist collective opened this collaborative conduit with our friendship. So it was like, if Jonas was involved, it meant there was going to be fun. Some memory would be had, or some special feeling would be attached to it. So yeah, being in cover bands and joining Slow Pony and playing music with Jonas just felt like the easiest, most lovely thing, because he would meditate, and that was an open invitation sometimes for folks to come in and collaborate or play music or be a part of his rhythm and his practice in that space, specifically at the Buoyant Heart. So yeah, I know Jonas was part of all of our lives here, and it's really incredible just to like remember him, but also I feel like he's in my waking state and walking with us, walking with me. But we also spent quiet time drawing and drinking tea and sewing together and playing in giant piles of clothes at Colleen's clothing swap, or doodling on objects and cardboard together, planning big canoe adventures and dreaming. And I helped him install some of his work in local coffee shops and galleries and at Bread and Puppet. And those are all individual little communities that he would just like openly was like, here's the door, come on in, meet more people, meet all of you, you're my family. So that really helped me feel seen and held in this space. Jonas also showed me how to skateboard, and he showed me how to pole dance, and he made my inner child come alive, and he helped me feel brave. And I think that vulnerability that he just evoked in his work, it really touched all the parts of my inner self and helped me feel brave to perform live music and to do things that I frankly didn't really know what I was doing, but felt confident because he was like, you could do it, I could do it. So that's just a lovely feeling. So in that way, I feel like he's kind of this multi-dimensional creative person that changed form and is still here. In the sunset, in the effervescence of the spirit of his work, it is still alive and well in all of us. And I feel, yeah, omni-affected by that human. So, that's all I have.
Thank you, Ellie.
Well, I don't know if anyone has any last words they want to say to each other, or it's been a really rich, incredible.
I want to hug my friend again.
Yeah. I guess I want to say thank you, Maria, for taking all this time to make this possible. Maria Dominguez, you've been very generous with us. And I want to thank each person for coming and saying what's true for you, and for helping our larger community know you and know Jonas. Thanks. Thank you.